Everything you have been told about your brain has been framed as a deficit, attention deficit, executive function deficit, impulse control deficit, 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 deficit. And you have heard it so many times that you started to believe the story that you are a person with less focus, less control, less capability. I want to offer you a completely different frame, not a softer version of the same story, a different story entirely. What if the problem was never that your brain is too slow? What if the problem is that your brain is too fast and the world around you can't keep up? I'm Ibrahim, nurse practitioner, registered psychotherapist. I assess and treat adults and children with ADHD out of Ottawa and Toronto, and I want to say upfront that this video isn't going to dismiss the real struggles. The misfiring is real, the cost is real. I'm not here to tell you everything is actually fine. I'm here to tell you the story you have been given about why it's hard is wrong. And that matters because the wrong story leads to the wrong solutions. And the wrong solutions lead to more years of grinding against yourself instead of working with how you actually are. The ADHD brain processes fast, not in every domain, not all the time, but in the areas where it engages, it moves quickly. Pattern recognition is often exceptional. People with ADHD frequently see connections between things that others miss because their brain is jumping ahead, making lateral leaps, refusing to stay on the linear path. That's not deficiency, that's a feature. It misfires in certain environments. It's extraordinary in others. The person who can walk into a complicated situation and immediately see three things that actually matter, that's often an ADHD brain doing what it does best. The same brain that cannot fill out the form to document what they just figured out. Here is what boredom actually feels like in the ADHD brain, because I think neurotypical people genuinely underestimate this. Boredom for most people is uncomfortable. Boredom for ADHD brain is closer to physical pain. The brain is running fast, looking for input, looking for something to engage. And when there is nothing there, it doesn't idle gracefully. It gets restless, irritable, anxious. It starts generating its own stimulation, daydreaming, picking fights, doing the most interesting thing available, even if that thing is terrible timing. It's not immaturity, it's a brain that genuinely cannot run at low speed without cost. A sports car doesn't idle well. That's not a design flaw, that's a design choice for a different purpose. Let me tell you the specific things I watch for in an assessment that tell me I'm looking at a fast brain that's misfiring versus a slow brain that's struggling, because the treatment implications are different. A fast brain misfiring looks like extraordinary in high interest, high stakes environments, and collapse in low interest, routine ones. It looks like hyperfocus that's so complete you lose track of time entirely. Not an inability to focus, an inability to stop focusing on the right thing. It looks like creativity that comes in bursts, often at inconvenient times. It looks like impatience not with difficulty, but with slowness, with repetition, with things that feel like they're wasting the capacity of a brain that could be doing something harder. And here is the reframe that I think is most important. And I mean this clinically, not as a pep talk. The struggles associated with ADHD are real. The disorganization is real, the relationship strain is real, the underperformance relative to ability is real and painful. None of that disappears with a reframe, but here is what the reframe does. It changes where you direct the intervention. If the story is, I'm broken and I need to be fixed, the energy goes into trying to become a neurotypical person, which doesn't work, which confirms the story that you are broken. If the story is, my brain runs differently and I need systems and support designed for how it actually runs, the energy goes somewhere useful, somewhere that can actually produce change. I want to talk about what happens when a fast brain doesn't have a target, because this is the misfire. The ADHD brain is built for engagement. It's built for novelty, for challenge, for the rush of something that genuinely matters. When that target exists, when there is a problem worth solving, a crisis worth handling, a project that is genuinely interesting, the fast brain is exceptional. When the target disappears, when life becomes routine, when the work becomes maintenance, when there is no crisis and no novelty, the fast brain starts firing at whatever it can find: conflict, catastrophizing, doom scrolling, risky decisions, not because the person wants those things, because the brain needs to fire at something. Understanding that doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does point to the solution, which is building a life that gives the brain enough real targets. Here is something I see regularly in adults who come in later in life, 30s, 40s, sometimes older. They have built careers and lives that, intentionally or not, are full of novelty and challenge. Entrepreneurs, first responders, surgeons, journalists, people who work in environments where the pace is high, the stakes are real, and no 2 days are the same. And they function extraordinarily well in those environments. What they struggle with is the rest of life. The paperwork, the routines, the things that need to happen consistently and quietly and without a crisis attached. That gap between how they perform at their best and how they function in the ordinary is one of the clearest clinical pictures of ADHD I see. And it responds well to treatment precisely because the capacity is clearly there. As a nurse practitioner, what I'm doing in an assessment isn't just looking for deficits to document. I'm mapping the whole picture, where the brain excels, where it misfires, what conditions produce each. I'm looking at the full differential, making sure that what I'm seeing is actually ADHD and not anxiety, not mood, not something else that needs a different approach. And because I can assess and prescribe within the same relationship, I can build a plan that addresses the whole picture, not just the parts that fit the standard checklist. The fast brain that misfires has specific needs. The plan needs to be built for those needs, not for the average presentation. And I want to give you the dopamine hit I promised at the start of this. Here it is. You are not the failed version of a neurotypical person. You are a person with a brain that is genuinely different, faster in some ways, less regulated in others, and you have been spending your whole life trying to perform as though you are something you're not in systems that weren't built for you, without any of the information you needed to understand why it was so hard. That's not failure. That's enormous effort in the wrong direction. The right direction exists. It starts with an accurate picture of what's actually happening, and that picture is available. If this landed, if some part of you thought, this is the first time I've heard someone describe this accurately, come to adultadhd.crocuscare.ca. Let's build the accurate picture, not the deficit list, the whole thing, and figure out what a life built for your brain actually looks like.